All right, so if you've actually sunk your unit and you're not trying to watch this for entertainment purposes, but educational purposes, please skip to here. And then after you unsink your unit, please watch the rest of the video because it's a really good time. And if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. All right, for the rest of you guys that haven't sunk your unit, today we're finally making a video because, Luke, how many times have we gotten comments of people going, can you make a video on how to unsink a Can-Am, Outlander, or Renegade?
All the time. I couldn't tell you how many times.
I know you're gonna literally screen grab and go bloop, 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 with all the, right now.
Too many times.
So the day has finally come where we are gonna make a full-on video on how to properly unsink your Can-Am. So this video is for the people with a Gen 2 V-twin motors, not the single cylinder Gen 3 500s or 700s, and not for the new Gen 3 1000 or 850 yet.
That video is gonna come later when this thing, hopefully it doesn't get sunk. But if this gets sunk, we'll probably make a video for the G3s as well.
But for today's video, we have a Gen 2 Outlander 850 XMR that will be unsinking.
But the funny part is that we haven't sunk it yet. So these guys just want to go out into a random pond and sink it for you guys, so.
Anybody that is new, this might be a little whack, but if you haven't seen our channel before, we do a lot of off-road stuff, so please go check out some other videos.
All right, this is today's test subject. We're gonna purposely sink this. It's gonna feel, yeah, I was gonna say it feels so wrong, but we've already sunk this thing so many times.
No, it's got the brand new motor in it. Never been sunk.
This does have a brand new motor in it. We're gonna finally show you guys how to properly unsink a unit. So hopefully we're gonna save you some time and money.
And your unit.
And your unit as well, yeah.
So first step, you gotta sink your unit. So let's take it to the pond. And in your case, you probably already sunk it.
So we've made it to the pond. This is where we're gonna be sinking our four-wheeler. Hopefully it's deep enough over there to where we can get the snorkel underwater. If it's not deep enough, we're just gonna remove the snorkel so we can demonstrate what happens when your four-wheeler goes underwater running. Right, Kyle?
I'm just gonna say right now, this feels so wrong to sink this thing, but it's for educational purposes and you guys need to be educated on how to unsink a Can-Am G2 motor. So we're gonna take, if you guys haven't seen my tall snorkel Outlander, you'll have to watch some other videos to get the explanation on how this snorkel system works. But our goal here today is to find at least 7.5 foot of water so that I can sink this sucker. And if that doesn't work, I'm gonna disconnect the snorkel right here and we'll definitely be able to sink it. So there's two ways that you sink your unit. Either one, your snorkel went too deep, which we're hoping is the case right now, or the second way that you sink a Can-Am is it shuts off just randomly mechanically while you're in the water and it goes up the exhaust and into the motor that way. Today we're gonna see how we sink it. I'm hoping that I take the snorkel too deep and I sink it that way. And if you ever do that where you go too deep, as soon as you know you're going too deep, shut the machine off, because if you turn it off and it sinks, it's better than if you sink it and the water shuts the motor off, because that's how you bend internal things in your motor. So without further ado, I'm getting hot. We're gonna do a test run real quick and see how deep this pond is. I'm really hoping this pond isn't like just straight mush at the bottom. If it is, I got Lee with a rope to pull me through. I'm not gonna lie, this is deeper than I thought it was gonna be. All right, so the top of my snorkel's at 7 foot. No way that I can make it this whole way. I might be able to. No, I'm still good, I'm still good. Ooh. Ooh. So this is the part where you start to panic because it's getting deep. Oh, I can totally make it.
Lee, pull him harder.
Ooh.
Come on, Lee. Here, let me pull.
Steve! No way! No way!
All right, so that tells us that pond is right at 7 foot deep. If I didn't blip the throttle and get the Outlander up in a wheelie, definitely would have just sunk it right there. So second run, I'm gonna go sink it this time. I'm just gonna let the snorkel go under, let this thing fill up with water.
How does it feel to know that you're actually about to sink this on purpose?
I feel bad, but I don't. This is my beater Outlander. I got it for really cheap. Then we blew the motor up. We just put another motor in it. Like,
But you're like purposely doing one of the worst things you can do to a four-wheeler.
but it's for educational purposes.
Well said.
See, teaching the people. You can't put a price on teaching. All right, now that that worked pretty well, I'm gonna back up, go run it again, but this time we're gonna sink it for real.
Are you ready to sink it?
Yeah, when we get up here, we're definitely gonna be sinking. You gotta get to the good D spot. Keep going, Lee.
We got Lee with the little general about to pull this thing out.
Hop out and do it. Pull the rope by hand, Lee.
Oh.
All right, so if you sink it, something like that might happen. All right, so if you find yourself in this predicament where you're swimming with your four-wheeler because you're in 8 foot of water like I currently am, you got to get it out of the water.
Oh, dude, it's like completely upside. Are those the back tires?
Yeah, these are the back tires.
Oh, wow.
That's, look at it, it's reaching.
Hey, look at it.
Let me get it turned around.
Nice. It's good. All right, let's get this thing out.
All right, we got our thumbnail pictures. Yeah, first thing is make sure you turn it off before the water turns it off. And then second step is make sure you get it out of the water.
Oh, look at the exhaust just filling up with water right now.
All right, so now that you've sunk your Can-Am, going upside down was not at all part of the plan. Made it pretty entertaining, but I'm freaking out of breath. All right, so now you got through step number 1 and 2, which is sinking it and getting it out of the water. Step number 3, do not, whatever I tell you, do not try to start these things. Because the water has gotten down and it's sitting on top of the motor, so we gotta get it back to the shop. I'm gonna go give you a step-by-step process. And this is the point that everybody that's already sunk their machine should be at. You're skipping to right now. So if you skip to this point, you didn't just watch the last 3 or 4 minutes, you got to see me just sink this at the bottom of an 8-foot deep pond. So again, this is probably one of the most important steps. Do not try to start it. It's the worst thing you could ever do to a Can-Am. Honda, they're different. Can-Am, no bueno.
Time is also a key factor because the longer you let it sit, the worse it's gonna get. You don't want the water to sit in the motor for a long period of time. Try to get it pulled in the shop as quick as possible and drain everything.
All right, so now that you got it back to your shop, here's the first thing you can do. On the back side of your belt, there's a plug. Pull that out. If it doesn't start to drain a lot like mine isn't, take a stick because it's probably got dirt plugging it up. And now she's flowing nicely. All right, so after you drain your belt box, you can take your air box lid off. Let's see if there's any water in here. Oh, yeah, we got water. Okay, so you can take your air box lid off, take your air filter out, and start to drain some of that water. An easier way to get that water out is if you come over to the side, you have these 2 hoses. On an OEM unit, you'll have a cap, and they're a pain in the butt to get off. So I take the caps off and I put these turn valves on. The reason I do that is because I can just turn it and let it drain just like that.
Hey.
So there's one last thing you can do while you're out on the trail before you get home to properly unsink a Can-Am, and that's to put it in park, get your buddies, come on. Yeah. Any water come out of it?
Yeah, just a little bit.
All right, load it up on the trailer, take it on home. All right, so we're back at the shop with a sunk unit where we're gonna properly unsink the Can-Am Outlander or Renegade Gen 2s. We also have a Gen 2 Renegade. This is not sunk. This is a 1000. That's an 850. Everything I talk about today works for the 570s, 650s, 850s, and 1000s. So I already went over this in the last scene, but for the people that skipped ahead, first thing we did, pulled out the drain plug out of the belt box. Next thing we did was these 2 hoses that come off your air box. You guys will be pulling the cap off. We have turn valves for quick draining because we sink these things often. The side plastic's off and this center cap. Take your air filter lid off. You'll be able to see inside your air box. But if we step over here to the Renegade, same process, taking the seat off. You have this front hood that you have to take off. Mine is a little harder as I have a radiator relocate kit. Once you get that off, you can get to your air box. Wow, it's really time to change that air filter. You can also go ahead and take these side panels off. Mine have been removed so many times that they're really easy to get off. Yours might be a little harder. There is one more thing if you've never pulled apart your machines. I just leave them off because I take them apart so much, is your inner fender liner. And there are a bunch of button tabs that you pull off and you can take those off. You're gonna wanna go ahead and do that on the left side of the four-wheeler because we're gonna wanna be able to get to that front spark plug. You can get a tab removal tool like this. They're extremely helpful to have for ever working on these four-wheelers. So next, after you've drained your belt box, your air box, and in our case, we stood it up to get the water out of the exhaust, you're gonna wanna go ahead and drain your oil. All right, so you're gonna wanna go ahead and drain your oil. It is a 17 millimeter. I find that a socket and a 6-inch extension is the easiest way to get to it. Oh yeah, we got some water in there. When you drain it, you'll go ahead and notice that you got some water in your oil. I like to do this before I ever turn the motor off so you're not mixing it up. And honestly, we were talking about timelines earlier. It's the best to try to unsink it about a half hour to an hour after you sink it because all that water will go to the bottom. So when you drain your oil, the water will come out first and then all the oil comes out. And then you're not trying to get all the milkshake oil out of your motor later on. So after you drain your oil, there's two ways you can go about your next step. If you sunk it in clean water, you're gonna do what I do. If you sunk it in nasty stuff, you're gonna have one more step to do. If you sunk it in some nasty mud, I strongly recommend you take your throttle body off, which is 2 hose clamps right here, and there's a 10mm bolt on the top of your airbox. Look, you're gonna wanna go ahead and clean that out. But for today, we didn't get it that muddy. I'm not gonna be pulling it apart. So the next big thing that a lot of people don't do is get all of that water out of the motor before they turn it over. The more stuff that runs through your motor, the less of a chance of this thing running. We're gonna go ahead and take the sensor off because that leads us right into the intake. Taking this 8mm bolt out, taking this sensor out allows us to get to the intake tubes and suck any water out of there. I'm sticking this clear 1/4" hose all the way to the bottom, shoving it down, and this is where you gotta be careful. You're gonna watch me suck the water through the hose and out.
Oh, wow.
So at least we had clear water, but some of you guys will have some real murky, nasty crap. So since the hose has a little bit of a curve, I was able to shove it in the hole and feed it to the left of the Y, which is your intake. But this time I'm gonna do it to the right. So you can also hook a vacuum up to this if you don't wanna do this by sucking it with your mouth. So the next step is to get our spark plugs off. To do that, we already have this panel off. These pull tab tools are really good for getting the spark plug boots off because you can poke them in like that, pull it up. So back to that 6-inch extension that I had and a wobble, as well as a deep well 9/16. I'm gonna go ahead and remove that spark plug. So once you get it all the way back out, pull that plug out. Now's a good time that I recommend putting some new plugs in. If it wasn't that bad, it was clean mud, you can reuse them. But before we go ahead and put these back in, we're gonna take some brake clean and clean them off. So now we're gonna go ahead and take the front plug out. Now this one is a lot harder to get to than that other plug. We have the computer kind of in the way, as well as your belt box snorkel in the way. So what I recommend to have better access is taking a 7mm and taking this hose clamp and this hose clamp off so that you can pull this out of your way and actually access that boot that is all the way up here that you can't even see. Grab the boot with this and pry it off versus yanking off by my hand and risking the chance of ripping the boot in half, which I've done. Now we have that boot off and out of our way, and then we can get to that spark plug. Again, this is a deep well 9/16 and a swivel socket is really helpful to have. Going in just like that. We broke it loose. I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of the ratchet and just use the swivel as well as the socket to do it by hand. So now that we've gotten all the water out of the airbox, we've gotten both spark plugs out, we've drained the oil, we've sucked the water off the top of the motor as much as we could, we can go ahead and finally turn this thing over. And when you do this, water is gonna go flying. You now have these pistons going up and down, pushing the water out. A lot of water is gonna come out of this plug and go about 15 foot in the air and get all over the ceiling of your shop. And then on that side, it's gonna go flying out and hit the wall on the other side. So when I do this, I like to stick a rag over the spark plug holes so the water doesn't go everywhere in the shop and make a mess, because I've definitely done that a few times. And one thing you might notice, no, I have not put oil back in this thing, and I have also not taken the oil filter out. I choose not to do that because I want as much stuff to drain out of this motor while it's turning over slowly. And turning over at this low RPM is not gonna hurt it because there is still oil remnants in the motor. So ready, we're gonna go ahead and turn this over. Oh! And this is another good reason to make sure you tip up the four-wheeler, because any water that came up the exhaust will be sitting on top of the motor, and that's just more water you're trying to push out versus tipping it up and dumping it out. Some of that is gas because we still have the fuel line hooked up, but there is a little bit of water that's coming out. And that's where sticking that 1/4" line down and pulling all that water out is super beneficial, because all the water you saw me drain out of there would have had to been forced through the motor and pushed out, but instead we sucked it out before we even bothered spinning this motor over. And here's another reason I don't put the drain plug and oil back in the motor when I first turn it over. If you look down here, we have stuff still draining out of the bottom of the motor, which is still pretty kind of watery as well as oily. And that's just more water you have to try to fight with if you do fill it up now versus while you're not spinning the motor over quick, you let it still keep draining. So now that we've gotten all the water out of the motor, turned it over, we can go ahead and put oil back in the motor. So next we're gonna go ahead and put the drain bolt back in. And at this point, I still have not pulled the oil filter out. And the reason is I'd rather have the old dirty oil filter while I'm doing my oil changes. And then at the very end for my last change, I'll put a brand new oil filter in. Next up, what I recommend, I don't have it with me today, I recommend going to Walmart and getting 2 to 3 of those 5-quart jugs of the cheapest SuperTech oil you can get. 5W40 SuperTech oil, just cheap stuff from Walmart. Get 3 of them. That's enough for 6 oil changes for like 50 bucks. And then you're not spending a bunch of money on oil versus one of these things is like $30. You're just saving some money there. So they take 2.4 quarts, I believe, maybe 2.5. Then once you put that 2.5 quarts of oil in, you can go ahead and put your dipstick back in. And we're ready to partially put this thing back together. We're gonna go ahead and spray the plugs off with some brake clean. These are rather new plugs, so I'm not worried about putting brand new plugs in. These should be fine. So we got the spark plug back in, got it tightened up. We're gonna go ahead and put that boot back on for the spark plug. And at this point, we can turn it back over. But I got one little secret for you guys. If you had sunk it and it was underwater for a while, what happened was your vent lines went under. Water probably went through your vent lines and got into your gas tank. If you feel like that might be an issue for you, go ahead and do this. So if you see these green little tabs underneath the throttle body here, those are actually your fuel lines coming into your injectors. You can go ahead and take those off and prime the bike. It'll pump all the fluid out of the bottom of your tank. You can do it 5-10 times and drain about a gallon of gas really easily. So if you potentially have water in your gas, you can do that to get any gas out of there so you're not trying to fight that with a no start issue. There's a button on the top and the bottom. They're a real pain in the butt to get off, but once you do get those fuel lines off, you can pull them to the side. Turn the bike on, you'll hear the fuel pump kick on, and it'll start pumping that water out of your gas tank because the water will be at the bottom of your gas tank, not at the top. That's only if you had the machine underwater for a while and you fear that there's water in your gas tank. For us, obviously mine was underwater for a while, so I really should do this, but before we filmed this video, I actually plugged up all of my vent lines because I knew all we were gonna do was go sink it, so I didn't have any water come into my system. But if you're in the case where obviously you sunk your machine, you wanna make sure you go ahead and do that step. They really are a pain in the butt to get off. And to not have them spill everywhere, I'm just gonna have them go into these jugs. You can use a drain pan or whatever. So when you go ahead and turn the key on and off, it'll turn the fuel pump on, and you'll see it just let the flow of gas come out. Usually I like to do that 5 or 6 times, and then we can go ahead and put these gas lines back on. And they just push to connect. And then now we can go ahead and put the plugs in. So we can also go ahead and put that first 8mm bolt in and the sensor back in that we took out. So you don't always have to pull those fuel lines off, but if you sunk it underwater for a minute, it really helps to get any potential water out of the gas that this thing wants to start up. We put the back plug in, now we're gonna go ahead and put the front plug in. So now we've got oil back in it, we got the water drained out of the gas, we got the plugs back in, and the spark plug boots back on, so we can go ahead and try to start it. Oh, that was pretty quick. It might take a little bit of hitting the gas, especially if you didn't do that step where you drain the water out of your gas, and that's why I recommend doing it.
Easy. Oh, almost there, almost there.
Now it's running. We brought it back alive.
It was running this morning before I decided to make this video and purposely sink it. But at this point, I'd recommend letting it run for like 30 seconds to a minute, then go ahead and shut it off. And because if you sunk it and a lot of water got in that bottom end, it's probably a pretty good chance that your oil's milky again. Go ahead, check it. It's got a little bit of water in there. It's not too bad. But I'm gonna go ahead, drain that oil out, change it again. At this point, for me, it was pretty clean. I'm gonna change that oil filter now. But for you guys, if yours comes out really milky, you might end up changing it 3, 4, 5, 6 times until you finally get all the water out of there. There's no more water in your oil. And if you finally get to the point where you feel like there's no more water in your bottom end, you can go ahead and change that oil filter and put your good oil back in. So now that we got it back running, make sure you go ahead and put a clean air filter in there. Non-educational purposes, I'm putting the dirty air filter back in. In our case, we're gonna be shutting these valves. You guys can put your caps back on, or you guys can visit shopkylecullen.com and actually buy these valves. Cheaper than if you go to Lowe's and have to make them yourself. And you don't even have to go to Lowe's, you can order them right to your house. We can also go ahead and put our belt plug back in. And like I said before, for you guys, you'll be changing your oil several times. We already did it twice to get all the rest of the water out of the oil. Once you feel that you've changed your oil enough times, you can go ahead and start putting the plastics back on this thing and you're back to riding. So the process for the Renegade is the exact same, just the plastics are in different locations, but there's a few more things you should check before you get back to riding. Like I said earlier about your vent lines, if they went under, that means you potentially have water in your front diff, your rear diff, your transmission, your gas, and I think that's it, and your coolant system. So you might want to look into draining those. So if you come over here, you can see your transmission. So there's plenty of videos on the internet to show you where the drain and fill is for the transmission. So if you think you got a lot of water in the system, go ahead and drain your transmission fluid as well as your front and rear diff. I already showed you how to do your gas tank. Coolant system, it's just more water in your coolant. It's probably not the healthiest thing. So yeah, that's basically the process that I do to properly unsync one of these Can-Ams. Now, if you super want to get in depth, you can pull the motor out, split the case, and totally clean the inside of the motor. But that's not your typical person that's watching this video trying to unsync their Can-Am. But if you weren't able to get it running, a few things you can still check is compression, fuel pump output. These things are really particular about how much fuel PSI is getting put out. So if you got a lot of trash into your gas, it might not be running because your fuel pump could be going bad, or it could have sucked up some muddy water and clogged up the filter. If you guys haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do. And if you don't know the history of this machine, please go check back on a few other videos that have this machine in the thumbnail, because this thing goes deep every single weekend. Currently is the deepest Outlander out there, and we'll probably hold that title for a while. We're gonna get this thing put back together, get back to riding. I'd also love to hear some comments about how you guys sunk your machine. Did you take it too deep? Did you fall in a hole you didn't know was that deep? But this thing has been a trooper. The last motor that was in it got sunk 10 times till we finally blew it up, which is ironically in this box right here. And we just recently put that motor in. It probably has 4 hours on it, and we just sunk it today on purpose for this video. So drop a comment if you actually use this video to help unsink your four-wheeler. And if not, if you haven't sunk your unit yet, make sure you save this video for the future time that you do sink it. But we post a video every single Wednesday. This one was a little bit more informational. Us kind of showing you how to unsink these units. We've been asked so many times, so I figured it was finally time to make a video about it. But next week, we'll be back with our action as normal. And if that's something you're looking into, hit that subscribe button. We'll catch you guys next week.
We're here at this clapped out Bojangles because they're remodeling everything. So like, we're gonna drive this, you know, skater through the drive-through real quick.
Look at that. Bro, professional right there, getting a job.
Dude, it looks
I
mint.
didn't put it on thick enough. I gotta do it again.
There's a little overspray.
Dang.
Well, it's fine because they're painting the wall white.
Oh, okay.
That's going white, right?
No,
Hey.
we're painting the same color.
Oh, that's jacked up. Oh, there's a ladder.
He's in the field.
Oh,